The 11th Type, a serialized ghost story for Halloween, Part 2. Millennium returned to her room at the inn just as the sun was coming up. She needed to speak with Master Yusei. She also needed to consult with Sanjay, another member of her order who was presently in Philadelphia, and so she used vibrational runes to tell Sanjay and Master Yusei, who was still in Paris, that they each needed to go out and procure a sacrifice of a living being so they could have a distant communication. Sanjay needed to be a part of the conversation because he was the world's foremost expert on the mathematics of advanced theoretical metaphysics, and anything involving the 11th type would require his participation. Each of them would need to sacrifice a living creature, and the rules of the universe of magic required that distant communication could only be facilitated by the sacrifice of the most magnificent, complex, and worthy creature on any given world. Luckily, in a sense, the universe did not consider that to be human beings on Earth, but instead considered it to be the honeybee. It was a stroke of a luck, or perhaps a writer's convenience, that there was an apiary in town, and Millennium obtained a honeybee. Where Sanjay and Master Yusei got their honeybees, one cannot say. But at 2 p.m. local time, this was one of the rare times in the 18th century time zone needed to be considered. The strange light coming out of the ritual circles began to each resemble Sanjay and Master Yusei, who in turn were each seeing a projection of Millennium in the other in their own ritual circles. Master Yusei spoke first. "What have you learned, Millennium?" "I have learned that it's definitely a ghost. Nothing else. It is self-aware, able to learn, and it's at least 2,000 years old." "There is still a third test," Sanjay said. "Wait, I administered all 3 tests." "Forgive me, Millennium. You did a test to determine if it was a ghost. Once it is known as a ghost, the other factors to determine if it is becoming the 11th type must be to know, 1, is it self-aware, and 2, is it ancient and still self-cohering. There is an additional test, but I will have to prepare in order to be able to tell you how to administer that. I have never taken it beyond the raw numbers, you see." "Sanjay, what exactly would happen if this ghost became the 11th type, the 11th kind, whatever you call it?" Master Yusei came in. "It is only possible, Millennium, if the first cause, the divine mind, the source of consciousness, which once broke away from the multiverse to spawn this universe, is half awake and half asleep. In other words, outside the universe it remains awake, but within the universe it sleeps in a schizophrenic dream. Only under those conditions would a ghost of the 11th kind be able to occur," said Master Yusei. "But I still don't understand. What does that mean?" "It would mean, for the first time in the history of all histories, whatever that means, that there was a completely separate consciousness, not connected to the rest of the universe, but able to act upon it." "And that," said Sanjay, "would mean a fully awake consciousness, not tied in any way to the first cause. What would it be able to do?" "Anything," said Master Yusei. "Anything it wanted to. We are not talking about just power, Millennium. Such a ghost, the very way of things, would become thoughts in its head." "But wouldn't the first cause, God, whatever it is, just stop it?" "Not if God is asleep. And the 11th kind can only occur if God is sleeping, at least the portion of God that is inside reality." "So, but it's just one human soul. The amount of consciousness does not matter, Millennium. It is the fact that it would have attained complete separation. It would function as an operator for the entire equation of reality, qualitative, quantitative, and consensus. All right, Sanjay, so how do I administer the third and final test? As I've told you, it's never gone beyond the numbers, but I will deduce a way to do it. What do I do in the meantime? What you would do with any ghost, Millennium. You could still lay the ghost before it becomes the 11th kind. And how am I supposed to do that? What would you do with any spirit? I would learn what kind of ghost it is by finding out who it was in life, why it is haunting and didn't move on to begin with. Yes, that is exactly what you must do. That all seems a little mundane for a ghost of this order, if it is what we think, Millennium protested. I will tell you one thing. You mentioned in your rune communication that it spoke Latin. Yes, I guess that's what it spoke when it went into the barrow. That barrow has been sealed long before the Romans came along. Your report indicated 2,500 years, but I suspect 3,000 or 4,000 years. So why is the ghost speaking Latin at all? Millennium realized Master Yusei had an excellent point. Right. So I can investigate the barrow. And perhaps I also understand a few years ago a local vicar wrote an article in a gentleman's magazine about some finds of the local Romans. Perhaps you should speak with him if the Romans ever had anything to do with the barrow. You just said yourself that they didn't. You said it predated them by 2,000 or 3,000 years. Yes, but like all people, the Romans would reuse things in a ritual landscape, so there may be an explanation. I would suggest visiting the barrow, and I would also suggest paying the local vicar a visit. Sanjay will get back to you when he has determined how to administer the third test. At this point, Master Yusei broke the ritual circle, and Sanjay remained still projected for a moment. I will see what I can find out. Is there anything I can do to stop it from becoming the 11th kind? Lay it. Put it to rest before it does. Once it does, you are and will always have been a thought in its head. Great. That brings me comfort. The transmission ended, and Millennium, on instinct, reached into her pocket where in her own time an iPhone would have been. Stress made her want to check social media. But, indeed, her phone had run out of power long ago, having now been in the 18th century for 3 years. And even if it had power, it couldn't connect to anything. Millennium needed some sleep, and so she crashed out on the uncomfortable bed. She would go to the barrow when she awoke and see if she couldn't make inquiries about how to meet up with the vicar.